All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Wednesday, February 28th of 2024, and looking ahead, we have a 6-game NBA main slate tonight. We have a 2-game NHL slate, and then we have golf teeing off early tomorrow morning. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. You can get your questions in one of 3 ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. And third, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. And if you're not in our Discord, want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. We do this show Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we do this show on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. So catch us 6 days of the week. But with that said, going to get the SaberSim app pulled up here, and then we are going to start with questions that came in the Discord as always. So if you have questions and something on your mind, now is always a good time to get that in the queue here. But our first question says, is sorting by projected score a good way to sort for PGA satellite entries, or still just use SaberScore? Thanks. So I'm going to say that, I think SaberScore is better than projected score across the board. And the reason that I'm pretty comfortable saying that is it's not like SaberScore is just completely ignoring projected score. It's taking it into account, but it's also taking into account other variables as well. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, hey, is projected score alone better than projected score plus an upside component plus an ownership component? And in my opinion, it is an easy answer that taking into account projected score plus upside plus ownership is always better than simply just taking into account projected score by itself. So, those are the variables that create the SaberScore formula. And, they just have different weights depending on what size contest you're playing, entry fees, number of games on the slate, etc. But I would always use SaberScore over projected score, and pretty comfortable with that guidance across the board. All right, next question here. Will late swap always give you a different lineup when initiated, or will it give you the same lineup if that lineup is still the optimal one? Good question. It will not always change your lineup for the sake of changing it. So what happens is that, your players get locked into the lineup. Then we randomly sample the sims again, create, new sim outcomes. And then we look at the salary remaining and the position eligibility remaining. And then we put in the best player based on the sims. So if the new sims have the same players as the old sims, then the lineup will stay the same. And you can see this. I've seen it the most often on Owner's Box. It'll tell you like, hey, how many lineups you got updated. So like if you have, 20 lineups, it'll say, hey, you're updating 16 out of 20. So that means that 4 of your lineups did not change. So you could see that on like a site like Owner's Box. I don't think you could see that on like DraftKings, FanDuel, or Yahoo. But just to confirm, it will not change your lineups just for the sake of changing them. It may leave the lineups as is. All right, couple more questions here. Next one from Cashman. Question says, what changes, if any, were made from Classic SaberSim to the current version? I was having a lot of success with Classic, but since switching to the new version, it hasn't been very good. So the biggest change, so nothing changed with our underlying sims and projections. Everything that creates our fantasy point projections are the same, and the workflow is like nothing from the underlying model changed in that regard. The only thing that did change is our ownership model. So when you click on ownership, it used to be SS own. So then now what you're going to see is this flagship MME own if you're on the standard and pro plans. So this is, our large field ownership for the day. The reason that it changed is that we used to have one set of ownership projections, but now with the contest sims, we wanted to have multiple sets of ownership projections. So we have 13 different sets of ownership. So this is the biggest change, is that our ownership has changed. But aside from that, nothing else has changed. I would probably just chalk it up to variance. I don't think it's related to the switch from classic to new. What I would instead do is spend some time looking at your lineups in contest flashback. So go back to a past day, go back to the contest that you played in the contest tab, and then go and see how your lineups are grading out with the sim ROI metrics, right? So click on a contest, go to players, go to users, and then come in here and, sort by sim ROI and look for yourself, right? Search your name, see how your lineups are grading out. Compare that to the lineups of, users whose portfolios, people who max entered, and see, what the differences are between their lineups and your lineup. See what you can learn. Go to contests that you don't even play. Go to the largest field contest and look at how the sharpest players in the lobby are playing these contests, right? Look at people who are 100 time, rather than trying to say that, the switch from classic to new is what's causing you to lose. I would spend some time actually analyzing your results. But aside from the ownership, nothing has really changed. All right. Next question here from Henry. What would you do different when entering a single 20 max versus a 150 max when building and selecting lineups? Smaller pool, higher mini uniques, or something else? Feel like using some inputs, the same inputs for both, doesn't get enough diversification in 20 max. So our DFS profit plan recommends that you do 2 builds, one for single entries and 3 maxes, one for 20 max and 150 maxes. The reason for that really comes down to the sliders. Like when you're playing a single entry, 100 to 1K entrance, and you look at the sliders at 0.6 and I switch to 3 max, the sliders stay the same. This is all based on our contest back testing of what sliders are best for which type of contest. So the single entries in 3 max play very, very similar, as opposed to like if I go 150 max large field, sliders go from 0.6 to 1.9. And then if I switch to 20 max, the sliders stay the same. Even sometimes you'll see like the sim diversity come down a tick. It's usually close enough to where you can just group these lineups together and build them together. So that's why we recommend 2 builds. Full disclosure, news comes out really late in NBA, and sometimes you don't always have time. I am somebody who builds all of my lineups together. And I know that's not optimal, but sometimes you're just put in these tough spots where, you have to either decide, do I want to react fast enough or do I want to just have 2 builds? And I just choose to react fast enough. So what I would say, if you're doing 2 builds, which I would consider optimal, is, just understand that, when you're playing, say, 5 single entries, if I have 5 lineups in my lineups here, my lineup to pool ratio is, 1 to 1,000. So I'm just going to be able to be more diversified in this set. I could probably get to, I don't know, 6 min uniques. Let's see what that does. Okay, I'm good. I can get to 7 maybe. Okay, boom, I got to 7. I wonder if I can get to 8. I could not get to 8, but I get to 7 min uniques, right? This is all a matter of the fact that I only need 5 lineups out of 5,000. Now, when I'm playing, 150 entries, I'm just not going to have that luxury, right? My lineup to pool ratio is like 1 to 33 or something like that. So if I tried to get, I was at 7, even trying to get to 5, I'm going to run out of lineups, right? I'm at 113 instead of 150. So I go down to 4. And then at 4, I can get 150, right? But then what are the quality of these lineups, right? How far down am I having to go? And it doesn't look like I'm going further than halfway in my pool. So like I would assume that these lineups are fine. But that's the biggest thing, right? You're going to be able to get more spread out in your single entries and 3 maxes if you're building them separately. So like as far as, strategy, I don't think there's anything particular that I'm doing like separate there. I think that, in these smaller fields, the only thing that really changes, like we said, the sliders, the sim diversity goes from 6 to 9. So what is that telling you? That's telling you that, hey, in, these larger field contests, you're going to need higher scores. You're going to need more upside in your lineups, which also means your lineups are going to have to assume more risk. So you have maybe, you need to be more comfortable with not cashing as often in these larger field contests, as opposed to when your sim diversity is 6, you don't need as high of a point outcome. You don't need as high upside of a lineup to take it down according to our back testing here. And you might find yourself cashing more often. So that is why the DFS profit plan suggests doing a mix of the two, because it's going to allow you to play some of these smaller field contests, some of these larger field contests, and allow you to smooth out the variance while still allowing you to grow your bankroll. So that's why it's good to have a blend of the two. 100K entries, right? So if I pull up my calculator, I'm going to sit around 105,000 divided by 150. So it takes, 700 people to max enter this contest, right? So say that everybody's maxing it. So on average, if you're maxing it as well, the average person will win 1 in 700 times. Well, let's say that you're twice as good as the field. So, you're twice as good as everybody else. You still need to play 350 times in order to realize that equity, right? Unless you realize it sooner. But like your mathematical probability is like 1 out of 350. So, there are 6 months, about 6 months from like late October to April, right? October to November, December, January, February, March, April, 6 months. And you're looking at 30 days in a month. So 180 slates. That's not even 350. That's half of that. So you might need to play 2 seasons of NBA just to win once, even if you're twice as good as everybody else. And like that is what variance is. You can be twice as good as everyone else and still lose for an entire season. So, Spencer talked about it in his Millie Maker video. Like, hey, if you're playing, the $15 150 max, like be prepared to lose $100,000. Like he kind of experienced that. He said, hey, I won 5 live final tickets before winning a $15 150 max. And, not to say he was doing anything wrong, but sometimes that's just how it happens. So you got to be, got to understand the variance. You got to understand, a little bit of the math and the amount of time it takes to realize some of your equity. So just remember some of those things when building your lineups. And that's why I would continue to follow the DFS profit plan. All right, jumping over the YouTube chat. Question from Kevin. When running contest sims, do you apply the contest you are playing or like the biggest contest available? Doesn't seem to be having much luck with the sims. So in an ideal world, what you would do is you would have a contest sim for each contest. So if I were playing, a number of contests, I would go through and run them for all of these. Now, because in late swap, you can't do that. And I told you guys, like, I'm running one build. What I prefer to do is just pick like a proxy contest and use that one. So if I'm playing, the quarter jukebox, the $1.20 max, the $4.20 max, I would just use the $4.20 max for all of them. What you could do pre-slate is you could do 3 different contest sims and then fill them accordingly and trash them. But once you get into late swap, well, then you're not going to be able to do that unless you do 3 different late swap builds, because late swap is on a contest by contest basis. So what you would then need to do is have a late swap for your quarter, late swap for your $1, late swap for your $4. And, I don't want to do 3 late swaps. Maybe I'm lazy, and I'm just saying that, I'm in a time constraint because I don't want to do that. That's, a personal choice, I guess. But I think either way is fine. If you want to do multiple late swaps, if you want to do 1 late swap and just use 1 contest sim, it's kind of up to you how you want to go about it. So it's like a time decision and how much time you have, how much time you want to spend doing your late swaps, etc. So you got to figure out what is the right answer for you. For me, the right answer is to do 1 build with a 1 contest sim and run it from there. But I know some people will think that I'm crazy. So it is what it is. But it looks like we're all caught up with questions here in both the office hours channel and the YouTube chat. So appreciate you guys tuning in as always. I will be right back here tomorrow, Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern for our next show. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. I'll see you all. Thanks. Bye.